Welcome to En Casa con la Plaza. My name is Abelardo de la Peña Jr. I'll be reintroducing myself in a couple minutes. We have here our esteemed guest, el señor Gustavo Arellano.
What's up? A todos, Abe, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in.
A todos there, could you see, are you seeing the both of us at the same time? Is that how it's working? Anybody could either chat or...
Someone say what's up.
Algo, por favor. Hi, thanks. All panelists from me. Hola, hola, Claudia.
Hello, we can see you. Thank you, Gisela.
Oh, I only see
Adriana.
Okay, so no problem. I'm sure that I could figure it out. You probably don't want to see both of us at the same time. You know, you'd be overwhelmed by our handsomeness. So
we have faces for radio.
Well said. Okay, well, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon here in beautiful Southern California, Pacific Standard Time. My name is Abelardo de la Peña Jr. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for La Plaza de Cultura y Artes in downtown LA. And this is our first session of En Casa con la Plaza. It is our way of continuing our programming, our outreach, our mission to tell the little told stories of Mexicans, Mexican Americans, and all Latinos here in Southern California, our history, our growth, and our evolution. So just real quickly, we're doing this to present conversations, presentations, demonstrations, and performances in this medium called Zoom. And also, hopefully you'll be able to catch us. You're catching us on Facebook Live as well. This is streaming live. It will be recorded. It will be archived, so you can check it out later. They'll be 30 to 45 minutes long, maybe a little bit longer, or maybe a little bit shorter, depending how things go. And we'll be inviting, as we invited today, the top Latino thinkers, authors, performers, educators, and so on. There'll be a mix of previously recorded and live content, walkthroughs, workshops, concerts, panels, games, whatever we could think of, whatever works in this medium. Of course, they're free. You're here enjoying this. And it's just a way to continue our conversation that we have at the museum through our programming, through our exhibitions. Okay, so with that, I want to just thank you all for coming. And now my honor to introduce to all of you, if you don't know him already, Gustavo Arellano. A brief bio here. He's currently a feature writer for LA Times. He's been there for since January of last year.
Yeah, correct? Like about a year and a half. At this point, a year and a half, yeah.
All right, about a year and a half. And also, of course, the former publisher, writer, el jefe of the OC Weekly. Doing that for a good number of 13, 15 years, as I recall. Author of a compendium of his essays, of his columns, Ask a Mexican, and also a couple other books that he's written. Orange County, A Personal History. We got an OC boy here. From Anaheim. Anaheim.
Yeah, you had it right the first time.
And then also Taco USA, basically La Biblia of Mexican food and how Mexican food conquered America. He's written for multiple publications, Southern Foodways, Alta magazines. He's a contributor for KCRW. I've heard you on KFI, on Kevin and Bean back in the day with K-Rock. You also freelance writer, food critic, food eater, food connoisseur. He's appeared on Ugly Delicious. And were you also with Anthony Bourdain on his show?
Yeah, when he did his show about Los Angeles, especially, I was able to take him to Cielito Lindo in Olvera Street.
Oh man, I miss Cielito. Right across the street from.
I know, esos taquitos.
Yeah. Okay, so
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so we got a lot of things to, but just a couple more things. is most recently began earlier this month in April a podcast for the LA Times, and it's called, what's it called?
Coronavirus in California, stories from the front lines.
There you go, Coronavirus Chronicles. And it has been I've caught up with it since the beginning. I've kept up with the podcasts, and let's talk about that. If you could tell us where the idea to these podcasts, first of all, where can people access these podcasts, and what was the germ of the idea to make it happen?
You could get the podcast anywhere that people listen to podcasts. So Apple users, you can get them on Apple, obviously, on the iTunes app. If you're an Android user, on Spotify. You could also go to our website. I'm going to post a link in the chat right now for Zoom, those of you who are there just for the most recent episode. And the idea came when the head of podcast, my Jefa, Abby Fenter Swanson, she was my producer for the podcast that I did last year about the 25th anniversary of 187. And she said, look, I know you really like to talk to people, especially just regular folks, so to speak, and I know you can do things fast. Why don't we do a podcast that goes Monday through Friday, really short, just you talk to one person, about 15-minute conversation, and we do this for as long as we need to do this. So hopefully this is not a podcast that goes on for years. We want this podcast to end as soon as possible. But in the meanwhile, we want to tell the different stories that Californians have with coronavirus. And that's the thing, we all have a coronavirus story. So I'm just trying to illustrate the different gradations that we have with it.
All right, and what was the first, you had of course an introduction, kind of a preview of the podcast, and the first one you put out there for the world was with your health writer at the LA Times. And what was her name?
Sumya Karlamangla. She's awesome, I mean, this is the thing, like, all the writers at the LA Times are great, but now there's some that we're holding up like, oh my God, they're the ones who are just doing the Lord's work. And so she's been a health reporter for years and years and years with us. And when coronavirus started, it's like, okay, it's time for her to step up and really show the world what she's made of. And she's done amazing stories on all aspects from the health perspective. Of course, all of my colleagues have done different stories pertaining to coronavirus. So we've had coronavirus coverage through arts, through sports, through food, Latino, Muslim, African American, South LA, Orange County, everything, the national desk. Like, we have done such a important job, I would argue, when it comes to coronavirus and how it's affecting California and increasingly also the world.
Okay, and what was her perspective? What do you from the beginning, of course, the health care aspects, the medical aspects, how it's affecting people on the physical level, so many deaths, so many people having to be treated. What are you getting from her now? What is the sense of where it's going on the medical front?
More than anything, it's an evolving story. What we knew yesterday can be different tomorrow, just based on the most up-to-the-date scientific evidence. But she said something that to me was very telling. And remember, this was the first episode of Coronavirus in California. She said, look, all of us, if we're smart in California, we have an earthquake kick. We've been living under this phantasma almost of the big one coming and destroying us all. But none of us had a pandemic hit. Not a single one of us. Even the people who tend to be prepared about these things, they didn't have a pandemic hit. So we're really living in times where people don't have answers. So what she said, though, is like, what we need to do is pay attention to the people whose lives are dedicated to following pandemics. So this is where the ideas of shelter in place, of wearing a mask. I'm not wearing my mask right now just because I'm talking, but otherwise I would be wearing my mask. Of, practicing social distancing, and also, washing your hands. That's what she said. The most important thing, wash your hands. Wash your hands. If you don't have hand sanitizer, that's okay, but just go get some soap, wash your hands.
All right, and with that advice, as far as the people don't have pandemic kits, have you seen that changing? Do you, say for instance, do you have one? Have you started looking around to see what could make you safer during these times?
What does make a pandemic hit, right? No one really knows. When you had originally this news of coronavirus coming in, what did everyone do? go buy toilet paper, go buy Clorox bleach, go buy the wipes and the hand sanitizers. I go to the market a lot just because as a reporter, I'm looking for stories anyway. And my wife has a market, so sometimes I have to go get produce and products. So I always notice what's still not selling. Like that first week, toilet paper gone, sopa maruchana gone, instant noodles gone. But you could still find baking powder, baking soda, and yeast. Now, all of that is gone. Even at the North Gates, even at Mercaditos, people are buying this yeast, but toilet paper is coming back. It's like people loaded up on the toilet paper, and now they don't have to buy it anymore. Water, also, that was clearing out. Now you could buy water perfectly fine. But the hand sanitizer is still not there. And so what we're going to see, I think when it comes to doing a pandemic kit, you just have to be prepared for both the stuff that you need on a day-to-day basis and then the stuff you might not need. Like for instance, I think it's important to have, you need food. You don't just need fresh food, you need frozen food. Us Mexicans, we got the tamales from Christmas. I have dozens and dozens of tamales that I haven't even touched. And now I'm not gonna touch because ahorita, gracias a Dios, we have food, but maybe there might be a time where we might not have food for a couple of days or weeks. And so you definitely need to plan for that.
And didn't you also put together your 100 burrito freezer?
Oh yeah. So every time I go to my dad's house, gracias a Dios, he always makes food for me, like guisos, papas or frijoles charros or sometimes carne asada. And so my siblings who still live with my dad, they don't like leftovers. I was always the only one who liked leftovers. I love leftovers. So instead of just keeping them in little Tupperwares, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make him into burritos. He'd always go to Acapulco Tortilleria, Penista LA, and buy a bunch of flour tortillas, and I would just make them. The cool thing now, and I've been doing that for a while, just because that would always be my lunch at the LA Times. If I had to go to the office, just buy tres burritos, ahí está. Now I have so many burritos, I forgot to label them. It'll be fun in the future. One day, like, oh, this is a chile relleno that mi tía Mela made back in the day. Oh, now this one's mole, so it's going to be good.
All right, good. Well, and in fact, today's podcast was about the worker, a cashier, Pam Hill, who works at an Albertson. She's also a union steward, and her experience of right after the first news of the pandemic, how all of a sudden from one day to the next, people lining up just with their shopping baskets filled with $600-700 worth of groceries, and without knowing what was going on. So
yeah, no, and so that's the latest episode. Pam Hill, shop steward. She works at Albertsons off of Crenshaw in South LA. And so one of the things that I asked her is like, have people really changed? Like, has it gotten less busy? And she's like, no, it's still busy. It's not the super long lines anymore, but it's still the same customers. You would think at this point we'd have more gratitude for these, for the people literally who are on the front lines, not just our first responders, but people like grocery store workers, UPS drivers, the people who are exposed to as many people as possible. And Pam said, nope, the customers are just the same. They're complaining now that, hey, you don't have this, you don't have that, prices are too much. It's like, we got to show some gratitude to these people. They're literally the people among the long chain of our food supply system that are feeding us. Without these people, if these people are sick, imagine if your neighborhood store closes for a week, what's going to happen? Like, these are your neighbors. These are the people. So talking to her was really illuminating. And I also asked her, like, what's selling a lot right now? Hair dye is selling a lot. And I'm like, ¿quién se está cuidando ahorita? I guess you have to look good even in quarantine, but that was interesting.
No, exactly. My wife and my oldest son went to my in-laws' home because they needed haircuts. And I mean, they're at home, they're not going anywhere, but they need their haircuts. So personal vanity, it makes you feel good. It makes you, just like a lot of people that are staying home, either working or not working, if they just start letting themselves go, I've noticed, their whole emotional state goes out of whack as well. Whereas I have found that if you continue with the same routine, you're continuing your same routine. Life, at least this part of life, continues on, and it's something that makes one feel good. What's your daily routine?
I help out my wife at the store. So, I mean, if you want to go through the whole routine, I get up in the morning because I'm looking for snails and slugs that are going after my garden. So I go give them I go get them. Let's just leave it at that. Then after that, I just check in my email, see what stories I have to do, plan for my day. If I have any store, like if I have to record stuff for the podcast, I do that. But then I just take my wife to the store, Alta Baja Market here in downtown Santana, and I just help her out. Like, I'll be the cashier. I take out the trash, whatever's needed. And then after, when we get home, just the funny thing is, like, in my day-to-day life, it really hasn't changed, because the only thing that has changed, I mean, we'd probably be doing this plática at La Plaza itself if it wasn't for that. So obviously no appearances. I teach also journalism at Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa. So every Monday I have to teach my class online. But otherwise, I'm a homebody. I like to read and I like to eat. And I'll watch television every once in a while, and I stop.
Okay, and you're right. This would be so normally a chat that we would be having at La Plaza. We have this is the time of year, you know, between March and November, that we fill up our conference rooms, our stages, you know, conference rooms with pláticas, with demonstrations, with roundtables, with panels, and then we have our outdoor stage, of course, with you know, salseros and the cumbia, and last year we had rockabilly in our film screenings, and now that's gonna change drastically. What do you see happening as far as that's concerned, and what kind of reaction do you get from people if you talk about what's next after this?
People think that what's next is going to be what was in the past, but we're not going to get to that point until we have an answer on coronavirus. And one of the answers is going to be a vaccine. We're going to need a vaccine. We're going to need some sort of, because here's the thing, unless you got it already, you can get it easily. And sure, people say, oh, you know, it's like no more infectious than the flu, or no more fatal than the flu. But that's the thing, you don't know. This is a disease. It's not the flu. It's something bigger than that. So when it comes to big crowds, I mean, just today, the Orange County Fair announced it's canceling. You know, and that wasn't going to be until August. That's way into the summer. They're saying, no, we're going to cancel. We're not going to be able to do what we used to do for a while. Eventually, at some point, we'll get back to that. But then there's also the assumption that, oh, people are just going to be fine. No, I think people are scared. People are going to be scarred from this. So but that said, organizations like La Plaza that are devoted for the public good, that are devoted to these community events, they're going to do everything possible to bring back something, but in a way that the public is also assured we're taking care of you. So I wouldn't be surprised if people have those thermometers that get the forehead really quick. People are still going to be wearing masks inside. You're going to be 6 feet apart for a while. And that's okay too. I think that's okay. As long as people are taking care of themselves as much as possible. And frankly, we shouldn't even start thinking about this until the authorities in LA County, of course, Mayor Garcetti, Barbara Ferrer, the Boricua who's in charge of health, until they say, hey, we could start slowly reopening, follow what they say. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but I'm not an expert in epidemiology. I'm not an expert on coronavirus. So I'm going to go with what people who have been devoted their entire lives, which is fighting these diseases and keeping the public healthy. I'm going to go with what they have to say.
Sure. So what's going on in Orange County? Back in a couple of weeks ago, you had your Rosanna Shaw from the LA Times staff talking about these coastal issues, about, you know, naturally when on hot days like this weekend, people naturally want to go to the beach. It didn't happen in LA County that I know, but what happened in Orange County?
Well, in Orange County, you had Newport Beach and Huntington Beach absolutely packed with people. The other beaches in Orange County were closed. Well, actually San Clemente, but San Clemente is so far down there that people usually forget about that city. So Newport, Huntington Beach were completely packed. And the Huntington Beach PD, for Huntington Beach's part, they're like, oh, you know, everyone practiced social distancing. Everyone was 6 feet apart. I'm sorry, the Channel 4 news copter doesn't lie. You saw those people there. In Newport Beach, it's interesting because that's a city that the mayor had been saying, like, no, we're going to keep this open. It's all going to be fine. Now, so many people came, and a lot of them, you know, if the other beaches in Southern California were closed, then of course people from LA County, San Diego County, the Inland Empire, they were going to come in. So now the mayor's saying, like, they're actually going to have a meeting tomorrow at the city council, hearing, should we close the beaches in Newport? And it might be the case, because here's a problem, at least right now. I get it. We're all pent up. We all want to go out there. But when we do go out there, nos rajamos, you know, we mess it up for ourselves. The whole reason why we even got this shelter in place was, if you remember, I think about a month and a half, maybe like a month ago, there was a really nice weekend and all these people started coming out, and you could see like the anger in Garcetti's voice is like, okay, nah, we're closing this down. Like you're going to get punished because you don't know any better. So if we had just done this total shelter in place for weeks instead of like this and that, I think we would have been off at a far better place. But you know, we're humans, we're Americans. We can't help ourselves except shoot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah. Well, you've a couple of people that you've talked about didn't have that choice, meaning that to go around. You've spoken to a person who has been in whose dad has been in lockdown, long-term care. You know, that's kind of like where we heard from early in the beginning of the pandemic, and then even now of these nursing facilities, of these skilled nursing facilities, these of not being of older parents having to stay in place and not having that communication. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most impacted, one of the big hotspots for coronavirus and COVID-19 has been nursing facilities, assisted living facilities, where some of our most vulnerable members of society, our viejitos, many times, they're there. The workers who are treating them are getting infected and dying. The old folks themselves, they're getting infected and they're dying. And it's a tragedy. In Huntington Beach, you had one facility, I think it was 53 people got infected. The fatalities weren't that bad, but I think in Riverside County, you had really bad versions. Yucaipa, there was one facility that just got devastated by this. So part of coronavirus in California, my podcast, is talking to those affected communities. Those communities are disproportionately affected. So you have assisted living facilities. You have Latinos and African Americans. We're dying at higher rates nationwide, and even especially in LA County than our population figures would have you initially believe. The incarcerated people, not just people in prison, but also people at the Adelanto Detention Center up in Adelanto for undocumented folks. I talked to one guy, Sergio Jonathan Moreno from El Monte. He literally just got out 2 weeks ago. The ACLU of Southern California, and they're currently suing Adelanto, but they filed a writ of habeas corpus basically saying if Sergio does not get released now, he is a grave danger of getting coronavirus because of just how packed those facilities are. So I talked to him. To me, it's important. I don't mind talking to celebrities. I don't mind talking to officials. They also have important things to say, but I like talking to people, just plain old folks, for lack of a better term. Everyone has a story. I want to hear those stories.
What's one of the most impactful stories that you've heard and that you've reported on?
To me, still the saddest one was my friend Sonia Velez. She's a senior administrative assistant at Long Beach City College, Bell resident. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, was tell the stories of people like her family. I saw on Facebook, she's like, mi tío Carlos, le decían Calín. Mi tío Calín passed away from coronavirus. And she was the first person I knew whose family was impacted in that way. So I interviewed her. It was the third episode. You hear it, it's heartbreaking. He was a wonderful man. He was involved in his parish and in his church in Bell. So they're Salvadoran refugees, and just had this wonderful life. And then it just got taken away from coronavirus. I asked Sonia, how was your family mourning? And her answer was just heartbreaking. Alone. They couldn't have the funeral for su tío. She was never able to say goodbye to him. It's terrible. And stories like that, they're all not going to be heartbreaking. A lot of them are going to be surreal, but more importantly, they're all real. They're all stories that, again, your neighbors, your family members, your fellow Californians are experiencing.
And how about yourself and your family? Your family, has it impacted, anybody within your circle?
Not yet, gracias a Dios. I don't know any family members or any personal friends. I had a colleague of mine, Julia Wick from the Los Angeles Times. She writes our Essential California newsletter. She was actually stricken by by COVID-19. I had her on the podcast. And if you know Julia, she's awesome, always energetic. And she sounded so sleepy and so lethargic because she was still coming back from it. But what I'll never forget about her, my interview with her, was a cough. She coughed twice. And, she didn't do it on purpose. It wasn't like, I'll do it for show. But you hear the cough, if you hear the coronavirus cough, you'll never forget it because it sounds just terrible. It doesn't sound like the usual cough con flemas que tienes. It doesn't even sound like the cough that you would have during allergy season, or like something goes down, the wrong the wrong part of your throat. It was just a terrible, terrible cough. Like if I ever hear anyone have it, I'll know like, okay, that person probably has coronavirus.
And what have you heard any hopeful stories? I know that you've spoken to people at the Union Mission who've just doing God's work out there. I mean, they've been out there for 100 years, helping out people down in their luck, and now this is just a place of survival. What do you hear from them?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you can't give people pure misery. You need to talk to people who are going to give you hope. So I talked to Min Pham. She runs a restaurant in historic Filipino town called Porridge and Puffs, and she's still continuing. She's doing it because she knows the community needs to be fed, and she's giving free meals to first responders. I did a story for the LA Times. It hasn't come out on the podcast yet, but about Suavecito. Suavecito, awesome. Yeah, we the todos los chulos use Suavecito. Great pomade, also like beauty products for mujeres, for anyone who wants to use them, their clothes and whatever. So they had to furlough about 60% of their staff. And they're like, these are our friends or brothers. I mean, they're all Santaneros here in Santana. So they're like, what can we do to bring these people back? They started doing hand sanitizer. They never thought they'd ever do hand sanitizer. But now they're showing, especially young Chicanos, hey, being healthy and washing your hands and keeping it is cool. And not only that, it's not just them trying to make a buck here. They've also given out thousands of hand sanitizers, not just to first responders, but also literally anyone who asks them, hey man, like I need a hand sanitizer. I'm a UPS driver. I'm a cashier. I'm a viejito, whatever. They're doing these giveaways. And that story just blew up. And people love to hear it. It's like local, they're young. They're like in their 30s, like local Chicanos doing stuff to help out la comunidad, putting their money where their mouth, their money where their mouth is. It made me happy. Like the reaction that I got from that, it made me happy that it's like, look, people are also doing good. Like we got to remember this is a dangerous disease, but we also have to not lose hope. And we also have to applaud those who are stepping up at a time where we need to step up.
You gave props to Mayor Garcetti. What other elected leaders, local or statewide, are you seeing that have really stepped up and that have taken this seriously and are making the right decisions, at least trying to make the right decisions?
Obviously, Garcetti's job, he's been very good. Even people who might be his usual critics, they've said, okay, like it's been important. Marquise Harris Dawson, he's the council member for South LA. I think it's District 8, but he was one of the people who pushed for a ban on evictions across LA while this is happening, like a total ban on evictions for people who might not be able to pay the rent. He's also doing so much to help out, and not just the people of South LA, but obviously South LA, historic African-American community, a lot of Latinos there, historic working class community. So he's taking care to make sure that all impacted communities across Los Angeles are being helped out. So he's done a great job. Gavin Newsom, of course, he's done an important job just really setting the tone nationally. Of course, Andrew Cuomo, I think what people want right now is a sense that their electeds are really doing the job that they're supposed to do. Like, what is government if not to make sure that people are able to live in freedom, that people are able to live the lives that they want, and in times of crises, that they are still doing everything possible to keep us safe. And that's what they want. They don't want uncertainty. They don't want someone who flip-flops. They don't want, I can't say what or who, but they want people who are asserting, hey, I got you in this. I got you in this. This is not about me. Somebody, I think it was Newsom. Someone asked Newsom something to the effect like, oh, like, do you think this makes your credentials to possibly run for president in 2024, that it's going to burnish them? He's like, you know what? I honestly am not thinking about politics right now. You're the first person. This is the first time I'm thinking about it. And he said it in a way where you actually believe them. Obviously, there's still politicians at the end, but you could see in Newsom, like, he is taking this seriously.
Yeah, you touched on the issue of tenants, of renters, of people who may not be able to afford their next rent, having to decide between paying for their housing and paying for food and other essentials. What stories have you covered there?
So for my podcast, I want to ask the name of it. So it's Coronavirus in California, Stories from the Front Lines. You can find it on Apple or wherever you want. We'll do a plug again. But I interviewed Trinidad Ruiz. He is an activist with Tenants Union of Los Angeles. Sorry, I'm forgetting the name, Trinidad. But their job is basically organize renter strikes across Los Angeles, help out tenants, as they call them, who need help. The tenants union, sorry, that's what it's called, the tenants union. So he's telling me these stories. Yeah, people, and this is back, he was the third episode. So this was early back on, this was episode 3, so around mid-April. And I asked, hey, how were you able to pay the rent on April 1st? Now the question is going to be, are you able to pay the rent on May 1st? A lot of people are not going to be able to do that. And so in the city of Los Angeles, again, they posted a moratorium on evictions and also trying to do like a rent strike. But there's a possibility of rent strikes for tenants. It's a legal right. This is not some commie conspiracy to not pay your rent. No, it's a legal right. You have to go through the certain processes to be able to do a renter's strike, but you can't do that if that's what you need.
All right. And another issue, of course, is education. All these kids, we're talking from K through 12 and even beyond, college students who were sent home, who have been having to take online courses, their parents having to be teachers now, people that are still working themselves at home, moms who are both working and having to take care of their kids. What's going on there? What have you covered that?
So I interviewed a middle school history teacher, world history, that teaches in Colton. We're Colton Unified School District out in San Bernardino County. And so he talked about just how surreal it is to be able to teach his students right now. He actually said if they had gone back to school, they would have been covering the bubonic plague, the Great Plague, the Black Death. So irony of ironies that they still had to learn that. But for him, I mean, this is one of the important things to realize when it comes to school. School, yeah, when you go through it, you don't like it or whatever. But then once you're out of it, like he said a lot of students are saying, I miss school. I wish I was there. And as a teacher, teachers are selfless. I mean, they're one of the most important yet unheralded members of our society. My sister, she's a 4th grade teacher. They care so much about their students. And it's one thing, you're in class, you see them every day. When you can't see them every day, you can't sense how are they, especially for a lot of students who, for many of them, school is the only safe space that they have. Like, those teachers are aching to be able to be back with their classes and be able to help those students in that way possible. That said, they're still doing the job that they're hired to do.
One of the at La Plaza, we of course were looking at things as they were developing, and one of the things that our leadership was looking at it is basically at what is Disneyland doing. It's not that we're going to follow their lead, but that was kind of
hopefully.
I know, but that was kind of like the as Disneyland does. We got to really pay attention. And you did interview somebody from Disneyland. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, such a great name. Glendana Shevlin. She's a concierge at the Disneyland Hotel. Also very involved with Unite Here Local 11, which is the union that represents the hotel workers at the Disneyland Resort. So Disney furloughed hundreds of thousands of workers across the company. At a Disneyland Resort, they furloughed 30,000 workers. So they're still paying for their health benefits and all that, but they're just not paying them their salary. So she actually said that Disney is standing by their workers. She gets where they're coming from. Like, you're not making money. And the Disneyland Resort, you're getting people from all over the world. You're getting millions of people coming every year. Some people are forecasting that Disneyland might not open until January of next year, which before coronavirus, Disneyland had only shut down, closed for a whole day 3 times. The day after JFK's assassination, the day of the Northridge earthquake, and 9/11. And now Disneyland hasn't been open since about, I think it was March 16th. It's easy to hate on Disney. I just hate it on Disney, but we forget that Disney does employ tens of thousands of people, a lot of them union workers, by the way, so they're getting living wages from them, and to have their own workforce not getting paid, it affects Southern California. Then let's not forget all the people who love Disney and like do everything Disnerds, as they call them. They're missing out on where they love to go as well. And if Disney's telling folks, hey, we still don't want a lot of people together at one place, yeah, it's smart for La Plaza and other organizations that deal with events to follow their lead. Absolutely.
All right. You're an Orange County guy. You're currently, could you tell us where you're at right now?
Yeah, so I'm at Alta Baja Market in Santana. This is my wife's store. Behind me, you see Atzlan. Let's see if we could, let's see, go this way. Those are some beans there from Rancho Gordo, all sorts of other stuff. Really briefly, the plug for my wife's store. So it's a market in Delhi. She specializes in products from the American Southwest and Northern Mexico. So craft Mexican beers, wines. She sells frittatas, sandwiches, chilaquiles, really, really, micheladas also, really, really good food. Of course, right now, all of it's to go. I was thinking of drinking a michelada here, but I didn't want to do it just because I want to emphasize, like, support your local businesses, but it's all to go right now. It's all to go. So she makes michelada kits. You can go to altabajamarket.com, and she also has an online store where she does some deliveries to Orange County, from Orange County, or pickup as well. But yeah, no, she's had it for about 3.5 years. Wonderful food. If you have a chance, please do come visit her.
All right. And then on the flip side of the Orange County, we have these protesters, people out there who are taken to the streets, not socially distant. I'm sure that we still, despite it, we don't have open carry in Huntington Beach yet. But have you spoken to any protesters? And what do you have a sense of what they're talking about, what they're saying?
Not yet, but I do plan to have some, not just protesters, but people who are opposing these shelter-in-place ordinances. Look, free speech, I believe in it 100%. We're not banned from going outside. We're not banned from even having protests. So I defend their right to do that 1,000%. Now, do I agree with what they're doing in terms of saying we don't need shelter in place? Absolutely not. Do I believe the people who say COVID-19 is a conspiracy and a lie? No, that's disgusting. That's absolutely horrific for you to say that. But in terms of them protesting, I mean, some of them, and look, I understand where they're coming from. Do you think any of us want to continue to not go to work or be unemployed? No. Do you think employers don't want to continue doing like their businesses? Absolutely not. But what we don't understand, we're Americans, so we always forget. We literally have forgotten what an epidemic is, what a pandemic is. Pandemics have been part of human history as long as we've had humans, definitely as long as we've had cities. And throughout human history, when you have pandemics, you shut down. You go on quarantine. Everything closes until it's no longer there. Look, just read the bubonic, and obviously it's not as deadly as the bubonic plague just yet, but read what happened with the 1918 Spanish flu. I did a story for the LA Times about, in Southern California, we actually have repositories of archives about the 1918 Spanish flu. We have one at UCLA. There's kind of one with the city of LA, the Huntington Library in San Marino. They have a lot of records about the Spanish flu. Read what happened there. The first wave of the Spanish flu, it killed a lot of people, but it was relatively fine. The second wave was just horrific, destroyed people. One of the cities that didn't get as badly hit, Los Angeles, because they had shelter-in-place ordinances fast. They closed down movie theaters, restaurants, they closed that down fast, and it was closed for 2 months. Newsom and everyone, they started this on March 15th. May 15th is 2 months. Let's just hold on until then, and then we could ask, like, what's next?
All right. Well, thank you, Gustavo. If you don't mind, would you like to take some questions? We had some.
Always questions.
Okay, good. I have from, let's see, from Catholic Curlin. She's an author of Hotel Mariachi, Urban Space and Cultural Heritage in LA. Do you know?
I have that book.
Do you know if anyone is working to help the mariachis at this time?
I'm actually, to sneak preview for my podcast tomorrow, I'm actually interviewing Carlos Samaniego, who's the musical director for Mariachi Arcoiris de Los Angeles, the world's first LGBT mariachi. And he talks about how there's a GoFundMe page for mariachis, across Los Angeles. My colleague, Ruben Vives, he did this sad, I say amazing because it is amazingly written, but it's a sad story about how mariachis across Southern California, they're not working because all the events that they usually go, and think about mariachis. What's amazing about mariachis, unlike almost any other genre, except I would say brass bands in New Orleans, you could book a mariachi for carne asada in your backyard, for a wedding, for a funeral, you could have a festival about it in a way that no one else can, and for no other genre. And they're all out of work right now. They cannot work. The mariachis are there at Mariachi Plaza. Like, who's going to hire them right now? No one does. So just tune into the episode tomorrow. There's a GoFundMe page that you could find that they're going to plug. But yes, you can help mariachis out. More importantly, call these mariachis up and say, hey, can I book you? Like, I'll pay you right now, but, you know, here's my rain check for in the future. Because there's going to be one day when the mariachis are playing again. We don't know what the day is, but there is that one day.
Oh, looking forward to that. Another question here en español. ¿Cuándo vas a escribir una nota acerca de las dificultades que está pasando nuestra gente indocumentada por la causa del COVID-19?
When am I? Yeah, I'll translate it. When am I going to write something about the problems that the undocumented community is suffering with COVID-19? As I said, ya hice un episodio de mi podcast, hablé con un indocumentado que estaba en adelanto. Eso era una cosa, mis colegas en el LA Times han hecho muchos artículos sobre qué está pasando con los indocumentados. En unos días voy a hablar con alguien que trabaja en Salinas, allá en el norte de California, cerca de Monterrey. Ella tiene una clínica que ayuda a los trabajadores en los campos, the field workers. So what I said is, you know, I did the episode with an undocumented immigrant for my Coronavirus in California podcast. My colleagues at the LA Times, they've done a lot of stories about how it's affected the undocumented community. And later on this week, I'm going to have an interview with somebody who runs a health clinic or a community center, which is also a health clinic in Salinas, up in the Salinas Valley. And they all deal with farm workers. And of course, a lot of our farm workers are undocumented. So yeah, with Coronavirus in California, I'm telling you, I'm trying to cover everything and anything possible, all of our communities that make up California.
All right, right here we have one more question. Andrea Corona from Miraloma asked, two-part question. What do you think will be the biggest change when we all go back to life? And you've kind of answered that. And then second, what has been the hardest thing for you during this time?
So the first question was, say that again, because I saw another question.
What do you think will be the biggest change when we all go back?
Obviously, the economic impact. So many people have lost their jobs. So many people, businesses have collapsed. What's going to be back after that? I mean, some people say, oh, the economy, like Seth Muchin, the Treasury Secretary, is like, oh, the economy is going to be back to where it was by election time. Of course, he's going to say that. People don't expect that. So I would hope that people are cooped up and will spend a lot of money. But if they don't have money to spend, what's going to happen? And as to how's that hit me the hardest? Obviously, with my wife's store. I mean, her business has just gone down completely. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, she has ¿cómo se dice? She has a kind landlord. I was trying to think of another word, but that's the best way. She has a kind landlord who's understanding. That's what I'm thinking. She has an understanding landlord and she has a loyal customer base. But other than that, all her business is gone. So just trying to help her. Again, like I joke, like, oh yeah, this is my office and I work here. But you know, part of me working here is like helping her out because she can't give her workers as many shifts as she'd like. So other than that, well, thankfully, you know, I'm at the Times, we still have a job, but also we had to furlough staff as well. So it's hitting us, but for the meanwhile, I still have a job and my family's still in good health. So I can't complain on that. All
right. Well, you see a question there from John Echeveste.
That's what got me there.
The question is, early stories said that Latinos were not as susceptible to COVID-19. Have we been able to change that misperception?
Yeah, that's one of the things. I'm actually going to have another episode for my Coronavirus in California podcast about conspiracies. And one of the conspiracies, or at least the theories, like, it's a white person's disease. African Americans, Latinos, we're not going to get it as for gabachos. And sadly, the stats have proven otherwise. In Los Angeles County, we're dying at a disproportionate rate. In New York City, they've gotten slammed. A lot of poblanos who live there in Queens, they've just gotten so affected. You see all these meatpacking companies, factories across the United States, they're workers almost exclusively immigrants, not just Latinos, but immigrants from all over the world. And they're just getting devastated. I think people are finally getting like, yeah, it's important. Like it is hitting Latinos and it's hitting us at a worse rate. I think cultural ambassadors like Suavecito telling people, hey, this is important. It's like, that goes a long way. In Major League Baseball actually, they're having, I just read the story yesterday. They're having stars like Albert Pujols, Carlos Beltran, recording these ads in Spanish saying, hey, lávense las manos, cuídense, limpien todo lo que sea. it's easy to make fun of celebrities, but people pay attention to what celebrities have to say. Like, it's important. So I think, and another colleague of mine, Andrew Campa at the LA Times, he also did a story about how Latinos increasingly are thinking like, hey, this is important. Like, it's hitting us, so we got to be more careful than other folks. And especially on the economic level, we're just talking about the health level, but economic-wise, Latinos are getting destroyed. Latinos and African Americans and Native Americans, when it comes to losing the jobs, we're facing it. And then when it comes to those jobs where you have to be exposed, we also are disproportionately affected by that as well.
Yeah, and I'd have to say you're one of those Latinos that Latinos do listen to. We appreciate you being here with us today, and everything that you're doing through your podcast, through your writing, through the things that you do to help out and keeping us informed. So if there's no more questions, I'm just going to make a real quick announcement here. First of all, to thank you, Gustavo, for being our very first guest on En Casa con la Plaza, our 3 times a week series of conversations, presentations, demonstrations, performances, whatever we could bring onto the Zoom platform, we'll do. This Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we're going to have Alicia Rodriguez, a bilingual outreach librarian with the LA Public Library. She's going to do it's Dia de los Niños. Traditionally on April 30th in Latin America, it's the celebration of literacy. So she's going to talk a little bit about Dia de los Niños, plus do some book reading and both some storytelling in both English and Spanish. Then tell us about all the resources that the LA Public Library has for families, for children that are at home and want to learn, be entertained, and so on. So that'll be this Wednesday. Then finally on Friday of this week, we have the great Luis Pettis, songwriter, percussionist, drummer for the hardest working band in showbiz, the little old band from East LA, Los Lobos. We'll be in conversation with him. He's an artist, he's a songwriter, he's just an all-around good guy, and I think it's going to be a great conversation. That's at 7 o'clock on Friday night on this channel, whatever this channel is. And in weeks to come, we'll have food cooking demonstrations. We'll be talking a little bit of politics. We have Philip Rodriguez, the documentary filmmaker, Cesar Castro, Dan Guerrero, Gloria Arjona, Gil Gutierrez. We have a lot coming your way. So please keep up to date with us on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at La Plaza LA. Yes. Again, thank you so much. Let's see, from Catherine, thank you for what you're doing for the mariachis. I'll be sure to watch your podcast tomorrow. Just talk to Carla Laplace at East LA Community Corp and learn the mariachis. Like local businesses are creating a GoFundMe page, just as you mentioned. So that's it for today. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias a todos. Gustavo, nos vemos muy pronto. Cuídese a usted y su familia, a su esposa, and drink a michelada for me.
Gracias La Plaza for doing this. It's so amazing. And everyone, please support La Plaza now more than ever.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.